Like I said, Election Day, just 2 weeks from tomorrow. Perhaps the most intriguing matchup we're following is in Staten Island as well as Brooklyn, where Republican Michael Grimm, he of the 20-count federal indictment, yeah, that guy, actually leads the Democratic challenger Dominic Recchia in one poll by 4 points. Why, you ask? Well, a lot of reasons, one of which was recently featured on The Daily Show. And we'll bring in our panel right now. I'm going to start off with Andrew Whitman. This was a funny bit, but it just speaks to, I mean, how could you lose this seat?
Well, again, you would think with 20 counts against the incumbent congressman that it would be easy to knock him off, but Republicans across the country now think Michael Grimm can keep his seat in Congress despite those indictments because former city councilman Dominic Recchia appears to be coming across as such a bad candidate. The Daily Show focused in on this, airing this soundbite of Recchia trying to explain how he's a better candidate for Labor than Grimm.
He has not done a lot for Labor, okay? He has a 44% record on Labor. My record is much better than that.
A 44% record from where? What do you mean?
And when you're rated in Labor, you have a 44% record on Labor. What? No. What are you talking about? Labor, the Labor place with the percents that they rate you. Now, if you don't mind, I got to go back inside the brick thingy with the roof.
And there's more, as Recchia tried to explain a trade deal called the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
A half hour later, we gave the candidate an opportunity to answer our question.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is manufacturing, or we have to manufacture more here in America, keep the jobs in America, and made in America is better for this country.
Here's how bad that answer was. The restaurant rating in the window behind him actually changed grades.
How bad is Recchia proving to be as a candidate? Daily Show found this clip of Chuck Schumer endorsing Recchia, then looking down at his shoes as he hears how bad Recchia's answers are, noting that's Chuck Schumer who usually runs to TV cameras instead of looking away from them. Rich?
All right, let's bring in a panel on this. J.D. Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College, professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Jonathan Yedin, Democratic consultant with the Advance Group and a former executive director for the Kings County Democratic Party. And Andrew Whitman, who you met before. I'm going to start with you. Explain this one to me. I mean, you have to try to screw this thing up with Grimm here, but when you hear Marblemouth here, yeah, did they just pick the wrong guy? Was he not ready for prime time? What's going on here with Recchia?
First off, anybody could have ran. Dominic had been preparing for this for quite a while because he was term limited at the city council. He had the ability to do this full time. It's not a question of bad or this or that. I mean, the polls are so close because this seat was Republican held for 34 of the last 36 years. People think it's New York City, you know, it's a liberal place. But this seat is a Republican seat, and it's always going to be a tough seat for Democrats.
He's facing a 20-count indictment. They got him video threatened to break a reporter like a little boy and throw him over the balcony.
He's silver-tongued, he's slicked, you know, he's good-looking. People like him, and people are, this whole mantra that he's a patriot and a hero, and liberal Obama is out to get him, you know, but because he's sticking up for his views.
Are you buying what he's saying?
That's what he's saying.
Everything.
That's what he's saying.
You could have had the strongest of Democrats. You could have had Barack Obama looking, but a white version, up against
Italian.
Yeah, I mean, and it still would have been the same results. The fact of the matter is, Grimm is seen. First of all, Recchia is a Democrat. Mistake number one. It is a Republican district. Mistake number two is that he is a Democrat and from Brooklyn.
Yes.
So let's not forget that. Staten Island residents are going to say, you're not one of us. No matter how much you look like us, no matter how many times you tell us your mother and your sister lives here on Staten Island, buddy, you're not one of us.
Okay,
so, Richard, no matter who they run,
you know, I hear what
no
you're
matter who
saying.
they run,
every Republican ran away from Grimm. I think he's got one person working for him. Nobody's writing checks. Nobody's endorsing him. They all thought this guy was DOA. Do you put more of that on what these guys are saying, or just that Recchia is such a weak-looking alternative right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add a third to what Dominic said, which is he is a horrible candidate by any stretch of the imagination. You could put him as a Republican in Staten Island, and he could be, you know, this Italian, whatever, slick as can be. He would not win this thing. He is a bad candidate.
Democrats have won this seat before. The last time there was scandal
Once.
involving... Right. So it's clearly there for the taking. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen with Dominic Recchia, especially as you hear more from him.
he's not that bad of a candidate. Everybody has a bad day. Every candidate in America, every journalist, myself included, we all have a bad day. It's easy to pull tape and make us look stupid. Any of us. I don't think you could do it with me, but I'm only joking.
All right, let's move on here. I don't know where to go with that one, but let's stay in New York, but talk about the race for governor. And again, with a couple weeks out, the question is, what defines a win for each candidate? Now, obviously, you win and you lose, but what about the math? Green Party candidate Howie Hawkins, believe it or not, he's at 9%. Could he make double digits? Is this legit? You're the polling expert here. Do you think 9% of New Yorkers are really going to vote for this guy?
He might very well get 9%. I don't think he's going to get very high in the double digits, but 9% for a Green Party candidate actually says something. I mean, given this race, that is actually a very impressive pull on his part, and you got to give him credit for that. I think it speaks.
But why, Gina? Only because the guy's run before. He's never done this well. It's not like he's set himself up. This cycle, is it more of an indictment against the governor, or is a protest vote? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's an indictment against the governor. I think you have people on the left, as we saw with Zephyr Teachout, you have people on the left who are not happy with Governor Cuomo, looking for an alternative. They're certainly not going to go to Rob Astorino, and Hawkins is there, so I think he's going to draw some of that.
If the numbers tighten between Astorino and Cuomo, won't some of that 9% or whatever it might be run back to Cuomo to make sure that he wins?
I am not so certain about that. I mean, he may get in 7s or 6s, but I'm not so certain you're going to see progressives feeling badly for Governor Cuomo that the margin has narrowed from 30 to 28. I don't see the
The reason why he's not going to get 10% is because the Working Families Party, even though they're holding their nose and supporting Cuomo, they need the ballot line. They need to turn out their vote. They're telling their members, listen, guys, you might not love the governor, but you love us as a party and what we've done. This is what we plan on doing. We have the mayor of New York City with us. You got to support us on the WFP line.
Jonathan, what's the magic number within the Cuomo camp, the Astorino camp, if he wants to run again in 4 years? What's their magic number that at the end of the night they say, okay, let's be realistic. They're not going to win here, the Astorino folks, but if they get less than 40, do they say that this was a quixotic, mission that they shouldn't have done in the first place? What's their magic number?
For Astorino, he wants to get north of 40. North of 40, I think, would be a victory for Astorino and position himself well for the future. The same, it would be a loss for Cuomo for presidential aspirations, just generally speaking, in terms of going into his second term, to be under 60%. And I think he's going to be right around there. I still think he'll get north of 60, 62, 63, but, that's it.
Everybody agrees with the math?
I don't believe Mr. Cuomo's a presidential candidate, so I think the whole argument is off.
I don't think Cuomo gets to 60. I think he's probably under 60, and I think Astorino probably breaks 40. I'm not sure what Hawkins does with all this, but I think it's
Hawkins
less than
is
20
completely irrelevant.
Then let's talk about
votes.
On the statewide level here. Is there another race in New York that you think might be surprising when it's said and done how close it'll be? Does Cahill have a shot to keep this within single digits? What's the one race you think?
Maybe the attorney general race. Maybe, perhaps, possibly. Reaching. The Post headlines of today doesn't help the current attorney general. Folks don't believe whether or not it's accurate or not. All they see is the headlines.
And for those who didn't know, this is a story almost 30 years ago that then as a state senator, that Schneiderman was seen doing coke. I guess it was Randy Credico is the one who went to Daily News with the story, right?
Yes, and we know he's a character, Mr. Credico. If the Republican challenger in the AG's race had more of a personality, Cahill, I would give him a shot, but I still wouldn't rule him out just yet.
Interesting who endorsed him. He's gotten some decent endorsements as Cahill. He's been guessing the show before. He's credible within political circles. I don't know from a state one. He's getting outraised, I think 20-1 or something. But is that the one race, or is there another one do you think might be closer than we think?
In terms of being close, I mean, that's probably the one race statewide that people are watching. Every other race, you see people running away in the double digits. Yeah, I mean, statewide. That's not to speak to the local races.
Jeannie, any indication from the numbers you've seen that race is going to tighten significantly? Is that remotely a nail-biter come election night?
It may be. I mean, like the Post headline today, although I don't know that it's going to be that close because Cahill just doesn't resonate. I mean, you're right. He resonates with people in the upper echelons of the Republican Party, but not as much with voters on the ground.
No bounce bounce from the top of the ticket.
Yeah, and
anything
he's got really the drag from the top of the ticket with Cuomo.
Yeah, I see all three major parties, the three major races, controller, AG, and governor, being roughly around the same, within like the margin of error of like a poll. And that's because you have Cuomo, who everybody knows, and then everybody else, including the Democrats, have such low name recognition that at some point you're going to see people just go straight down for the most part. Maybe when they get down to their local race, state senate or assembly, they might switch parties, but for the most part, the top of the ticket, they're just going to go straight to the party
The
line.
one number that jumped out to me was still this Howie Hawkins and the 9%. In fact, we're going to be speaking to the Green Party nominee for governor this Friday. So you can see at 6 o'clock. He'll be in our panel talking about the race and a whole bunch of other things, including some of the criticism from the left of the sitting governor. Okay, when we come back here, it's a story that obviously has impacted the town of Sayreville in New Jersey, but it goes well beyond that, and a related story also in Orange County as well. I'm talking about the conflicting accounts from witnesses in that high school hazing case here that could actually complicate the investigation in New Jersey, and school officials in another local community canceling the JV football season altogether, again with allegations of bullying. We'll talk about that after this.